From the Marquee Media Studio inside Mark Tank, it's the Mark Haney Show.
Yes, this is the Mark Haney Show. We are on a mission to ignite the entrepreneurial revolution right here in the hometown we love, and we do that by building the BackYard Advantage, the most connected community in the world, with a culture of love, right? It's all around helping one another. We interrupt this podcast with a special message about GFX. It is the premier venture conference in the Sacramento region, and it's October 10th at the grounds. It's our third one, and this event is like no other. It's venture capitalists, entrepreneurs, small business people, VIP leaders of Sacramento coming together all around building businesses and building the BackYard Advantage. This year we have great content. There's going to be world-class speakers on artificial intelligence, fintech, govtech, medtech, and so many other things in helping you to build your business, you to grow your investment portfolio if you're an investor. It's going to be great. We are going to be recognizing people who have done great things here in the region. It's called the BackYard Awards as part of this event, and really it is the place to be. Again, October 10th at the grounds in Roseville. Be there. It is the place to be. Today is, I think, number 8 in a series of our most valuable towns in the Sacramento region. We've talked to the city of Sacramento. We've talked to the city of Roseville, and a number of others in some counties. And today, we're going to be talking to people from the City of Rancho Cordova. Today on the show, I am joined by Diann Rogers. She is the president and CEO of the Rancho Cordova Area Chamber of Commerce, as well as Amanda Norton, economic development manager for the City of Rancho Cordova. Welcome to the show. Now, Diann, you've done podcast before, but Amanda, you're new to this whole thing. I don't know. Are we gonna be able to stump you today?
I will take all the efforts to try and stump me. And actually, the other fun fact is I didn't update my bio. I've recently become the director of Rancho Cordova.
Oh, what did I call you?
Manager. So no, it's hot off the presses. I haven't even announced it yet. So here to hear first.
What's the difference between a director and a manager? Director is obviously higher. Does that mean you're managing more people or directing different departments? You get paid more money.
All the above. So yeah, it has a little bit more, obviously, I don't want to say importance, but there's just more activities and different things you have to do, not just focus specifically on economic development, which I do, but also looking at some other various ways in which case we intermix with departments in the city. Okay, so let's go into your career a little bit, or at least your occupation. We'll start there. You described a little bit about what you do, but so what is basically the idea behind having an economic development manager for a city? What's your goal? Sure. So the primary focus usually of economic development has to do business retention, attraction, and then growth. So once you have a business in, really the big thing is to make sure, are they healthy? Are they happy? How do we help? How do we get out of their way? What do we do on that front? We're constantly looking at the assets that we have available, and assets be it vacancy in office space, retail, industrial, and then looking at our talent pool, because that's the other big thing, right? A company's going to go where they know that they can find other people.
Yeah.
And so our mix is working with that. We obviously, as Rancho Cordova, we're a development city, so we are growing both in commercial assets as well as residential. And so how do those mix together? How do those people have jobs? What do those look like? And so it's always kind of having a pulse of what's happening throughout and how do we help?
And part of that is you're trying to drive that growth. So part of the, I guess you've grown over the last several years, but is the goal for Rancho Cordova to grow fast? How do you decide how that's supposed to work?
I don't know if there's necessarily a pace to it. We are market driven. So we have obviously goals and things that our community and our council and our businesses want to see. And the pace of that is really going to be based on what is the market demand. So right now, residential's hot. We've done over 1,000 housing units last year. Historically, in the last 5 years, it's been 600 to 700. So there was a big push on that. And primarily that was because we have always been a ginormous job center in the Sacramento region. And so most people were from all over the 6-county region and commuting into Rancho Cordova every day. So we're also trying to be placemaking, be like, hey, how do those people who have historically commuted in now live and work in Rancho Cordova?
So in terms of measuring growth, you're looking at growth in jobs, you're looking at growth in the tax base. what other things do you look at? Is population growth?
Population growth as well.
Okay, so seeing good, responsible growth, and so it's a great place to live and work, I suppose.
And play.
Live,
work, and play.
All right, we'll talk about that in a second. Let's bring in Diann. Now, you run the chamber for not only Rancho Cordova, but it's like a giant geography that you run the chamber for.
Yeah, it's about a 62 square mile area. We serve Mather, Rosemont, Rancho Murrieta, Gold River, as well as the city of Rancho Cordova.
Okay, now in terms of maybe just a little bit on that too, from your standpoint, when you serve, what are you trying to do? Are you helping businesses predominantly? What's the focus of a chamber of commerce?
Well, by definition, it's in its name. We are a chamber, an organization that serves commerce, so therefore being business. So it's a membership-based organization. We're a nonprofit, but we're a 501c6, which gives us a little bit of advocacy role that we can take that maybe some other nonprofits don't. Our three primary tenets are giving our members the opportunity to connect, network with each other, and then providing business resources or facilitating those business resources, and then a lot of advocacy work.
Okay. So both of you are very familiar with Rancho Cordova, and you've talked about assets, which are a big part of what makes something valuable, right? So the people are an asset, the talent is an asset, the businesses are an asset, and there's a lot of other assets. So I want to get into a little bit of that. Who's lived, I know you live in El Dorado Hills, you live in Rancho Cordova, right? So we've lived in this area for a while. Let's talk about some of the assets that are just more like natural assets that exist in the Rancho Cordova city. So maybe, Diann, if you don't mind, maybe just like what things are attractive about Rancho Cordova from an asset standpoint in terms of like natural assets that you have?
Let me answer it in a way of like, for example, we are right on a major thoroughfare. We're the Highway 50 corridor, and we have a great relationship up and down the corridor and serve and work in partnership there. There are 5 exits and on-ramps into the city. Trains can go through. We're right next to an airport, which very large planes can land and do that. We're off of the floodplain. And we had a big ingress of folks right after the Loma Prieta earthquake because we're also off the fault line. So those kinds of, you're talking about literal natural assets, the ground is good. Yeah. So from that standpoint, but then we also have educational institutions, we have good schools, we have a wide range of housing, we have a wide range of businesses. The city has taken on the fact that we are putting fiber down in the entire city. So for residents and for business. So those are the kinds of assets that we can offer.
Yeah. So you live, Amanda, in the city, and I think when I think of what makes me want to live in a certain place, for me it's about the people. But like, what makes you love living in Rancho Cordova? What do people see in Rancho Cordova that is so special in terms of making you want to live there?
Sure. So one of the other natural assets, if you have rafted the American River, you have rafted the length of Rancho Cordova. It starts you at Sunrise and it drops you off at Hagen Park. So in terms of fun, if you've ever been on the American River on any given Saturday in a tube, you've had some fun. Nice. And that's primarily where it is. We talked a little bit about our growth, and as part of that, we have bike trails throughout our community. We also have a really large wetland preserve area, and that provides a really natural buffer for. We actually had a Cub Scout that got out and did this project to view birds and different estuaries we have throughout the city. So it also has that nature preserve feel that a lot of people get out and they watch our detention basins, which have now become homes to otters and all sorts of other things that people just really enjoy. The other thing is our community has always been built on partnerships. We also partner with, in addition to Diann at the Chamber, with the Cordova Community Council, and they're kind of our fun organization. So when Rancho Cordova became a city, we always use 4th of July as like our birthday. So we do 2 days of fireworks, not just one.
2 days. So the 3rd and the 4th, the 4th and the 5th?
And the 4th.
Oh, you start early.
Yeah, we start early. We go big. We love fireworks. So we have a Christmas tree lighting. There's fireworks for that. Any actually time we could shoot off fireworks as a community, we do. We have a lot of free events for our families. So we have Kids Day in the Park. And I think one of the other big ones that's really interesting to us is we have International Fest or iFest. So we celebrate all the various diversity that is located in Rancho Cordova and in the surrounding area. And why we think that's so key also from a business perspective is that diversity brings in diversity of thought, background. And so when companies are coming in, they're looking for people who have new ideas, different perspectives, different way of looking at things. And so really Rancho Cordova and the Sacramento region is where you see that diversity, and we shine in it. We have 90 languages spoken in one of our school districts, and Diann runs a program.
Oh gosh, the teacher must have their hands full. Plus English, right?
Plus English, right? Yeah. Like I'm still working on that one myself, but like Diann has a program called Embark, and she could talk about that, but it's really looking at these businesses that are entrepreneurial in nature. They're usually very diverse, and we like to shine the light on those guys.
Okay, so I'll go to that one second. What's iFest though? What do you do when all these diversity gets together? You party? What do we do?
Oh yeah, we party. So there's various dance performances, theatrical performances. So you name it, the culture comes in all dressed in very traditional outfits that they would wear that are very traditional for whatever culture it is, be it South Korean, Russian, Ukrainian, Vietnamese. Like
I'm a white guy. Can I go in there and just hang out? And
100%.
100%.
Okay.
So I think, was it the Navy ones? I forget. No, I think there was just someone. Clogging. There was clogging.
Okay, so diversity comes in all forms.
Shapes and sizes. It looks very different.
I love it. Oh, do you know when the next one is?
It'll be in April or May.
Okay, it's in the spring. Okay.
And it's actually an offshoot of another program that we have. It's called Leadership Rancho Cordova, where one of the things they do is come together about a project that they want to offer back to the community. And iFest was the brainchild of a leadership class, and now it's grown and become even bigger. It attracts folks from all over the region.
Okay.
It's a cool event.
It does sound cool. So now there's another event that she referenced. That what was the name of that event you talked about?
It's a program called Embark.
Oh, Embark. Right. What is Embark?
It's got a very bizarre acronym, but the point of it is to bring very new young entrepreneurs, young in their approach to business, and give them a 10-week program where they come once a week and they get expert advice on developing business plans, identifying capital, presenting themselves, to bankers and other financial institutions, social media, understanding their finances, things like that. And it's a pretty tough program, but the idea is they go through it, and at the end they're given a stipend to be able to spend back on their business to help, take advantage of what they learned. It's a great program.
That. How do you guys fund that? Do you fund that through the chamber, or do you fund it with the city money?
The city has a fantastic program called the Community Enhancement Funds, and they've actually passed 2 half-cent sales taxes that are specifically for the enhancement of our community. And that's a broad definition, but it allows us to do things like this program where we go to the city and say, this is an awesome program. We're the perfect vehicle to be able to offer it to our business community. Will you support it? And in many cases they say yes, and we're very grateful for that partnership.
Well, let's talk about chamber membership a little bit, if you don't mind. So what kinds of people make up the membership? Are they small business predominantly? Are there large business? Who's in
all
there?
of the above?
Okay.
But I'd say about 60+% are fewer than 10 employees. And then because gradually, there's fewer and fewer as you get higher and higher, but there's fewer of those kinds of businesses. And they join for a variety of different reasons. Much the same. It could be making those business connections and actually getting referrals, or they feel a strong sense of giving back to the community. I think it's a misnomer sometimes that people think that all business is just for profit. That couldn't be any farther from the truth. The fact of the matter is, so many businesses, this is where they live. This is where their kids play soccer and baseball. It's where they go to church. It's where they shop. They want to make an investment in their community as well. So, and the chamber is one vehicle through which to do that.
I want to talk about this a little bit. We spoke as we were coming up into my office or up in here into the podcast area and talking about why I started the show. And I started it because I felt like there was a gap at the time about sharing the stories of small business and entrepreneurship and winning. And I missed that, as I was building my businesses. And I always thought, well, if I could talk to people that have actually been there, done that, then it would help me to maybe grow my confidence and give me ideas on how to grow my business. So you're doing that in real life. I love that. But it often comes to mind, we don't talk about this a lot on the show, but I think that we should, the importance of small business. I mean, we sort of, you and I take it for granted that small business is important, but why is growing a business so good for not only for the guy that's growing it or the woman that's growing it, but for our community?
I think there's a couple of different ways of answering that. The first of which is so many of those small businesses come from passion. They come from somebody who is extraordinarily excited about a concept or a product or they may be the best baker of something or the best maker of something, and they want to share that, and how do they bring that to fruition? So a lot of the things that the programs the Chamber does is, okay, you've got this great idea, now what do we do with it? And watching that happen is one of the most amazing experiences you can ever imagine. And I'm sure you felt the same way when you've started your own businesses. Somebody has an idea and you get to watch them go through the steps, helpfully help them go through those steps, make the connections, facilitate those relationships. And it is absolutely a fact that so many people want to help this happen. To see that community grow together and support each other is just absolutely amazing. But they also want to leave a legacy too. I think there's so many businesses, they want to do something to make their world a little bit better for their kids or their grandkids or whatever it may be. And I just love the ideas. It's almost like you can almost see ideas on top of people's heads, like the light bulb concept. And when they start to talk about it and when they start to share their ideas, it is contagious, their passion.
It is.
And I think there's another flip side to that, as well, not flip side, but in addition to side with that, is when you have those small businesses, they tend to hire folks that are already locally in the community. They're already invested in there, which means it just from an economic perspective, you see those dollars for their salaries be reverberated throughout because they're shopping at your local markets. They're investing in their kids' soccer teams. They're going to all the practices. They're coaching all those things. And so small business is really that's driving that community fabric that we see so much, and the things that we love, right? Those small homegrown things. You're like, yeah, that's mine. That's really where that secret sauce is.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about some of the most generous people in our towns are the people that have had a little bit of success in building their business, and so they do reinvest it back into the local community, into sports, and obviously into hiring people to help them do this. And the one thing that Diann, that you kind of touched on that I see happen on a daily basis, we invest into startups, but any small business knows that it's tough to build a business. It's really, really difficult. And so you have to figure out a way to do something a little bit more special. Definitely needs to be different. Otherwise, why would somebody come to you? And so every time that a small business person makes that little tweak or that major pivot, it makes their product a little bit better, their service a little bit better, and that's better for our town, that's better for society. And so it's really that imagination that is, I think sometimes overlooked at how important that is to making society better.
Your point, I think, is well taken. It's not, there are lots of widgets out there, but what's going to make your widget stand out from the next widget? And I think it's how you approach it, your capacity to bring in partnerships and whatever that may be, and have people work in community together to make these things happen. It is contagious. It does build on it, particularly when somebody feels that strongly about it. Partnerships are absolutely key, and the adage of a rising tide is so appropriate in business. The partnership that we have with the city is extraordinary. We're actually physically located in City Hall, and that's an advantage to not only our business community, and then the group that the city gets together. They have representatives from different departments, and a business can go in and say, here's my plan, here's my idea, and somebody from fire talks to them, and somebody from public works talks to them, and somebody from economic development talks to them, all in one group.
Wow.
To be able to help them. The idea is success. This is a city, and it doesn't happen everywhere, who wants to know how they can make it happen, not be an obstacle to making it happen.
So you drive over to City Hall. I want to start a business. I need, what do I need to do? You drive over there, and basically it's like a one-stop shop. It sounds like.
It's a one-stop shop. So what Diann's talking about is our development services team.
Okay.
And this took a lot of effort to get together, and why I think it's really amazing for our city is we are not a full service city, right? So our sewer, water districts, and fire, police are all external to us. So what we were able to do is every Thursday at 10 a.m. it's free. Businesses usually we do it online, we do it hybrid, just whatever works for them. They'll come in and be like, here's what I'm looking to do. And so it's a little bit drinking through the water hose, or for them the fire hose really with this, but they get information from the building department, planning department, public works, fire department, sewer, water, SMUD. Hey guys, here's what you're going to need. Be alerted to this. Here's what you might have to do with this, change of use, all these other terminology that'll happen out there. But the business has a complete list of everything they're going to need to know. And then not only that, but names and phone numbers. Because what we tell them is, like, if you have a question, before you submit your plans, call us. We'd much rather solve those problems ahead of time rather than have you submit and go through plan review multiple times, which and that's just a waste of everyone's time. So let's figure out how to make this easier for you. Here's their name and number. Call them.
Yeah.
Let's solve the problem.
So small business, you've got that laid out, but you've also has in Rancho Cordova. There's also bigger businesses. We have bigger businesses in the chamber. Obviously, the bigger businesses are a big portion of the good paying jobs. So what are the assets in terms of big business? Who are the big employers? Who are the big businesses in town?
Well, a few that come to mind is VSP.
Okay.
That's their international headquarters. We've just brought in Solidigm, and as a result of bringing in Solidigm, they moved their entire headquarters to Rancho Cordova, which is awesome. We've got Thermogenesis. There's a whole lot of manufacturing and things like that are behind the scenes.
So Solidigm makes chips, right? And then so VSP, they make vision glasses
and insurance.
And insurance. Yeah. Okay. And what was the other one that you mentioned?
Thermogenesis.
What do they do?
Want me to
sounds really
yes,
technical. Thermogenesis sounds technical.
You're going to make it a little bit more concise than I would.
Sure. The other thing I will step back with really quick for VSP is there's actually 5 businesses that fall under the VSP umbrella.
Okay.
We always think of them as eye care and insurance and health, which they definitely are, but there's also a full technology branch to them in their back pocket, and we can put a placeholder in that one. The really cool thing about Thermogenesis is they have been in the cell space for quite some time, but one of the really cool things they're doing right now is whenever we think about entrepreneurs and co-working spaces and everything, you're like, I made the widget in my garage and it was really cool, and that's where that came about. And then they move into co-working spaces and expand. Well, what do you do when you're in the sciences? You're not going to tell someone, I came up with this great drug that's going to cure cancer in my kitchen sink. That's not going to fly. So what Thermogenesis has done is actually developed clean room space and wet lab space.
Oh, wow. That's hard to find, too.
Yeah, so it's startups for the life sciences. And so there's actually an event coming up that they're going to be pitching a lot of their space for that. So it's basically a co-working space for the sciences, which I think is very unique in the region. We've heard it's an asset, and so we're looking to see if he can
That's exciting because at the Growth Factory, I think we're invested in like 60 companies over the last 2 or 3 years, and a number of them are in life sciences, and a lot of them are in and around the UC Davis area. But to know that right in Rancho Cordova, there's those kind of facilities that are available, that's really great to know.
Yep, they call it the Ready Start Clean Rooms. Is the name of that company.
And if I could add on to that, there's another philosophy that Thermogenesis has, and that is they aren't out to make money on those facilities because that's very expensive to rent those things. So many times people will have great ideas and they go someplace else to be able to produce it cheaper. They want them to stay here, produce here, grow here, so they try to make the environment as positive as they can to stay here and continue to grow.
Wow.
And it's a very cool, it's a mindset that I really admire.
I definitely need to meet them because that's a lot of what we're all working on is getting people to, you don't need to go to, San Francisco or the Silicon Valley to build a business or, out of the state. You can do it in Sacramento, and maybe there's an advantage. Maybe if we work together like Thermogenesis is and you all are and the kinds of things that we do, it's like we all work together. Why not just do it here in our hometown and make Sacramento great and, and Rancho Cordova great?
For sure. And we recognize that we look at ourselves not only as Rancho Cordova, but also as the region. And so when we think about ourselves along the Highway 50 corridor, for example, like ourselves, Folsom, Sacramento County, El Dorado County, those life sciences business, there's actually quite a few of them that are out here doing cutting edge technology in the life science sector that they're just in little spaces tucked in here and there, as well as obviously when we think about more of the people that are doing, technology or manufacturing in those spaces. But it's like all of that workforce and people live and work in this area and have businesses here. And it's a really strength that we have that I think we don't talk about as often.
Well, I love that collaborative philosophy of, we just think of ourselves as one bigger region versus, carving the lines so clearly. The only ones we care about is us because really, if Rancho Cordova wins, it's good for Folsom and it's good for Sacramento, it's good for Roseville, Rockland. It all sort of bleeds over throughout the entire region. Now, that philosophy, not everybody has that philosophy. I think it starts with leadership. Can you talk to us about the leadership at the city?
Sure. So we've been a city for 21 years. So we have 2 council members who have been with us since cityhood. So I think that's a really great, strong base because they understand where we've been, where we're going.
Yeah, we talked about that. No term limits. Is that, okay, so how normal is that? It seems like that it's shocking to me to hear somebody's been there, let's say mayor. I guess you switch out the mayors every so often. So a city council person, I mean, they have that institutional knowledge, which I can see the value in that, but that other people, they might want fresh blood in there.
For sure. I think part of it's because we've always felt of ourselves as a city startup. Like we were really just kind of making it up as we go, borrowing, and like Diann mentioned, partnerships is key to us because we're like, hey, do you guys have any forms? We need to borrow these because we now have people showing up to pick up permits on day one of us being a city. So I think having 2 council members currently that have been here with that length of knowledge and skill and expertise in our city kind of helps ground some of that. We have some other council members who are in the technology sector, so they're definitely looking at our city in terms of different verticals that we have and how do we grow those businesses and how do we get our folks trained into skills that can go into those businesses. So I think that's kind of one of the unique mixes of our council members is they're really looking at us from a regional perspective and a citywide perspective and how do we do better.
And they're a business friendly council, right? Do they have business backgrounds, generally speaking?
Yeah, so almost actually all of them have been in various private sector companies in various shapes and sizes. It was really fascinating right now. Our mayor, who we currently have, is also a virologist by training. And the last time...
Okay, what's a virologist?
Someone who studies viruses. So he was mayor when COVID hit. And so it was a really interesting time for us to have a mayor that uniquely was skilled in viruses.
Was he as freaked out about it as everybody else?
No.
That's funny.
But he's an outstanding communicator, and I think he was able to make everybody feel comfortable and understand it. And we used him as a resource. In fact, all around the country they did. But that gentleman is now, 2 things about him. David Sander, he's now our mayor again. And he is currently serving as the president of the National League of Cities. So Rancho Cordova has the number 1 guy for the National League of Cities is David. And so he brings that. We hosted what, 600 or 700, I don't know how many
300
mayors from all over the country to do that. But let me tell you something else, and you're asking about business things. David, at the very beginning of the year, we do a state of the plans for the mayors, and he came to us and he said to the community, he says, I want you to tell me what you failed in this year. Not necessarily what you succeeded in, but what you failed in, because the attitude is we got to try things, we got to try them again and see how we can make them better. And if we have a failure, that's okay, because we know that we tried. We didn't have these encumbrances where you have to do it right the first time, you have to do it perfect the first time. So that is
supported. He called on his team to publicly acknowledge the failures.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Wow.
Absolutely. And that trickles down to everybody, and the other thing that Rancho doesn't do is they're not siloed. I can pick up the phone and I can call, Amanda's actually sat on my board of directors in the past, and I can pick up the phone and call her, but I can call somebody in public works, or I can call somebody in community development, or wherever the department is. I don't have to go get somebody's permission and go up over the top and turn around and come back down to have a conversation.
So what is the vision? So in this annual event, I assume Mr. Sander lays out the vision, and the vision is discussed. What do you see for the city of Rancho Cordova besides, continued growth?
Continued growth. Well, I can tell you that one of the things, I'm going to go back to the partnership, if I may, for a second. Myself and Amanda and another gal that we work with and the city manager were on a panel, and the whole point of the purpose was to talk about partnerships and how well communities can survive and grow if they're willing to entertain partnerships, if they're willing to give up control, if they're willing to give up their egos, if they're willing to give up, having to be perfect every time. And now we're taking that same program down to the California League of Cities, and we're going to do a 90-minute program on the power and value of partnerships and those relationships, and how it can make a community grow and become even more successful together if they're willing to take that approach to things.
Okay.
And that's what the mayor's done.
I want to dive into that just a little bit, not necessarily for Rancho Cordova, but just to kind of use it as a, learning experience for all of us about why partnerships can be important. So Rancho Cordova is great at some stuff, right? Sure. They're not great at everything. Roseville might be great at something. The Chamber might be great at something that the city is not so good at. So the collective effort, you're stronger by coming together. I assume that's the reason. You have this more creativity and more horsepower. Is that predominantly why the partnerships are important?
Absolutely. And I think the other part is we recognize our strengths and we take advantage of them. The old adage of trying to get better at something that you're bad at doesn't work.
Yeah,
You know,
play to your strengths.
Play to your strengths. And we've got some amazing strengths. I think we could probably even do better at telling more people about those amazing strengths. You were
That
talking
is a
about
weakness.
that is a challenge, but it's there, and we need to take advantage of it. And I know you had our friends on from Folsom. I don't know, a couple weeks ago, I guess.
Yeah.
You know, and Folsom has some resources that we don't have, but we have resources that Folsom doesn't have, and El Dorado Hills. And if we're willing to collaborate, work together, you know, again, the rising tide, and everybody benefits. We have an organization called the 50 Economic Alliance along the Highway 50 corridor, and the agreement is, if it doesn't come to us, we want it to stay here. And so if the business comes to Rancho and they live in El Dorado Hills and they shop in Folsom, it's all staying here. And that's what we want it to do. And, you know, that boundary goes out even farther to you guys as well. But the idea is we have to have that mindset. And I may not get the victory today, but I'm going to support the victory that came about because I know something's going to happen in the future. And you have to have that approach to it. You can't be parochial about it.
Yeah, and even on like a little bit bigger scale with that is we also are part of the Sacramento Economic GSEC. Why am I botching on the
Greater
name?
Sacramento Economic
Council. Yep, I'll be flagged for that one later. Hi. But I think that's one of the strengths of that group as well. Is so all of us economic developers sit on the board. We all have a conversation. I always say that in government, plagiarism is the highest form of flattery. So, hey, what did you do? How'd that work out for you? Oh, that didn't work out. Where are the pitfalls? How can we tweak it to make it work for our community? But exactly that is like we recognize that in Rancho we have some strengths. Of course, we want the businesses. You have to have a little, competitiveness in this role and want to get some of those great wins for your community. But the same thing we recognize where if that business lands in Folsom, if that business lands in Roseville, if it lands in Davis and Woodland, it's still a win for us as a region. Because as we said, we have been a really big job center for so long, and so we've had people that commute from the 6-county region into us every day. So we recognize that that's what strengthens those ties, because most people don't know where city-county boundaries end. We do, but no one else does. And so as long as we're all playing nice and figuring out how to strengthen us all together, that's our wins.
Yeah. And thinking about the two things on that. So the city-county boundary. So when I go to Rancho Cordova, I'm usually going to 50. So I'm in Rockland, which is Placer County for anybody who's trying to get the geography here. So I've got to drive down a main corridor, which is Sierra College Boulevard becomes Hazel, and then it gets over to 50. And then if I want to, then from 50, I can go either to Sacramento or Tahoe or wherever I'm going to go on 50. So Hazel is sort of my avenue to come visit you guys. Is there anything specific going on in Hazel? I've always seen this construction over the last few years when I've tried to go there. So obviously you guys working on the roads, but I don't know where the city actually starts. When do I enter the city of Rancho Cordova? What street do I cross?
So you're going to be on the southwest corner of Hazel and Highway 50. You've entered Rancho Cordova.
Oh, it's not till all the way at Highway 50 is when I get to Rancho Cordova?
Yes.
Okay, so a lot of that's what, like Fair Oaks?
Fair Oaks above the river, then you go through Gold River.
Oh, yeah, okay, Gold River.
So on that portion, we are only south of Highway 50.
Okay.
But then once you get to Sunrise, we go north of Highway 50, just to make it confusing for you.
Okay, yeah, okay, so I can picture that now. And other people who are maybe new to Sacramento, you're like, shut up, dude, you don't care about the streets.
Roughly Hazel to Bradshaw. If you think about Rancho Cordova, we're roughly nestled in there, minus a few tweaks.
Okay, so you and I were talking before the show, Amanda, about challenges. One of the challenges that I guess all of America faces today is, we have too much office space, right? So Rancho, you told me, has a lot of real estate that is office, and there's more vacancy these days than there was before COVID. How are you dealing with that?
We're going to be trying to get a little creative, to be honest. Yeah, we have the second largest square footage of office outside downtown Sacramento. So we're sitting on over 18 million square feet of office. One of the pieces we have to that is we have a lot of large floor plate office, meaning that we were able to land some really interesting businesses during COVID. Solidigm is one where they came in and took over numerous, over 100,000 square feet of office. UC Davis Health came in, took over 194,000 square feet of office, but that's because we had that available. Had we not had that available, they wouldn't have been able to move in. To be honest, I don't think we've quite flattened out of where COVID and the office market and return to work is all going to lie. But we also recognize that that office park was primarily built through the 90s and early 2000s. And so as we have to think, what will bring people back to the office? What do they want to see? What does that look like? And thinking really globally of like what office markets are where and how have they survived and what does that look for us? So we've always had mixed use zoning throughout there. So, but it's probably increasing some residential, looking at various mixed use concepts and getting a little creative and kind of thinking outside the box. So we're going to be doing probably a big office park study here at the later part of the year and kicking that off.
So I know Sacramento area has been known for having affordable housing. Now, we're not as known for affordable housing as we once were. But in terms of office market, I would think that right now is probably a good time if you wanted to rent lease an office or, so will Sacramento be sort of a destination or Rancho Cordova potentially because, we've got the inventory. And so supply and demand, you're going to get some good deals.
I think we're definitely going to be a big landing spot for a lot of businesses. We're already starting to see those come in. Generally, it's always been referred to as the hub and spoke model. So during COVID, a lot of people now can work remote. And so a lot of folks from the Bay Area and different areas have moved into Rancho Cordova and the region. And so a lot of times those offices will be like, hey, how do we set up a satellite office there? So that way folks do have chances to come in because people still like being around one another and sharing ideas and getting creative. And it's kind of hard to do that on a Zoom call when people are in 2D and you just really need to sit around and have a conversation about that. Some of the offices still have leases, so we'll have to wait for those to cycle through whatever we'll do, and we'll have more availability then. But I think it's going to be a little bit of a mixed bag. But now that we've had businesses like Clutch that have moved in, Frequency Co-working, Regis has moved in as well. So what we're already seeing is, hey, those small entrepreneurs are looking for a place. So you don't always want to be in your own four walls all day long. We know that roughly...
Go to Clutch, or it's called Frequency now.
Frequency
those are friends of mine.
Yep.
That's awesome.
So they got space there. And so those are those chances where you can go, and I think they refer to them as the happy accidents, right? Where you just sitting around drinking coffee, talking with somebody next to you and get a little mind meld, and that's the idea.
That's awesome. Well, let's talk about housing just for a second here. What do the different neighborhoods look like? You guys have about, 80,000 people?
Just over about 84,000.
84,000 people. So I imagine you have affordable housing. You've got, I can think of Gold River. That's kind of high-end housing in my mind. It's nicer homes. What's the choices if I want to move to Rancho? Is there a pretty broad selection, or is there something that is like, oh, this is a place to be if you want to live like this?
I think it's a really broad spectrum. So we definitely have homes that when you get north of Highway 50, you're going to have homes that were constructed primarily in the 50s, 60s, 70s. So they'll have its own architecture that goes along with that. Where we're seeing a lot of our new development is south of Highway 50, in which case those homes are roughly 650,000 plus or minus. They kind of top out at $1 million. But that's kind of where the sweet spot is with those. We're seeing a lot of families that are moving in, having a little yard space. And so I think it's just going to be really a mixed bag. The one thing that we have been working towards is we haven't had a lot of multifamily that have come online. We had one project that moved in, and we call it Capitol Village. It's right in the heart of our office park, and those apartments have commanded some really amazing rents given the young professionals that moved in and we're looking for amenities that you're going to find in that scale of multifamily. And I think we'll see that a lot in the multifamily product. We've had it entitled, but it's just a matter of time whenever they get the capital stack together to come on board.
We talked about the office. Everybody's sort of facing that. If you've got office in your town, you're faced with this challenge of potentially, some vacancy. What other challenges is Rancho Cordova facing these days? Anything come to mind?
I think it's just probably, I would say, I don't want to say growing pains. That might not be the right term.
Because you're 21
We're 21 now.
So we're
legitimate adult in all the respects. But, I mean, we're looking at a lot of areas that haven't developed are now going to be developed. And so a lot of times when people haven't seen greenfield development, they just thought it was going to be open space forever. And now you see buildings going in on there. And sometimes that involves just having different conversations with your community of, hey, this is what it's zoned, this is what it was always going to be. And because we've seen such rapid growth and we're seeing more growth, it's just kind of walking through those processes where there's once cows out there and now there's homes going in.
Okay, so I'm always looking for a good place to eat. We talked about this, I think, on the Folsom Show, and so I'm going to bring it up again. What's the best restaurant in Rancho? I'm not as familiar with the restaurants out there. I know you guys have a Cattleman's, but I'm in and around Rancho all the time, but I feel like I never stop to eat.
Well, you're going to put me in a bind with that question because
Okay.
as a Chamber of Commerce, we support everybody.
Yeah,
and we've got.
All right, give me one that comes to mind then. Not your favorite.
I'll do that. We have a lot of great chamber members. There's a great place called Thai Buddha.
Oh, Thai food.
Yeah, Thai food.
Oh, my wife would love
Patali's has Italian food that's off the chart. Ippolito's, if you read the Business Journal, they were just listed as the #1 unknown diamond in the rough.
Oh, is it Italian?
Yeah, Italian.
Where's it at?
You know where Capital Christian and the 24-hour Fitness
so
on
up
fire?
50.
Yeah, they're in the Rosemont side of things.
Oh, yeah.
Just on the other side of Bradshaw. Fantastic. In fact, I just, one of their owners is now an ambassador with our chamber, and she said we were overwhelmed by the gratitude and the people coming in, and the newspaper didn't let them know that they'd won, and so that they were very overwhelmed at the time.
Well, yeah.
But what a problem to have, you know? And so for those kinds of places.
Everybody's always looking for a great restaurant, especially a diamond in the rough, because we all know about the ones that are maybe, more well-known, I guess, or even the national chains, but that sounds like an independent.
It is an independent. I've always had this idea. I think that Rancho could be, I'll call it a food alley, in the sense that you can find every ethnic food in the planet, I feel like, on Folsom Boulevard. And if you just, you could make that sojourn down there, but you'd start at KP Market. KP International Market. If you've never been there,
I've never been there. What is KP Market?
You need a
that
tour.
is
okay.
absolutely.
Where is it?
So we call it the Foz.
Yeah, it's the Foz. So if you're at Zinfandel and Folsom, you'll have Target, and if you keep moving around Olson Drive, it's International Market.
Right.
So when you walk in there, you are broken on one side. So it's like you walk in and you're like, oh, this is the Japanese spice aisle versus the Chinese spice aisle versus, oh, they're doing various Parisian foods and you name it. There's a full Russian bakery in there. So he developed a food court. So you can get K-pop, you can get sushi rolls, you can do all these various foods just walking around the food court.
Okay, so there's food that's already made, but you can also buy the ingredients to go home and make that food yourself. So it's got a kind of a combination of like grocery store plus food ready to eat.
People will come 4 or 5 hours to KP Market.
Oh,
the gentleman
goodness.
that started that, he started it as an Asian market, and he very, very quickly, he is a fabulous business. He's got a great story. He's got, he was on our board for a while too, and just listening to his stories and what he brings to it. He happens to be Korean, but he very quickly realized that there's a lot more cultures in the Rancho region than just the Asian cultures. Afghani, Hispanic, Russian, French, Italian, everything you could imagine. We actually, the leadership class that I referred to earlier, will do I'll call it a scavenger hunt, and have them go through the market and find places from, foodstuffs from different international.
How big is the market from a square footage standpoint? You have a guess?
It's huge.
It's like as big as a grocery store?
No, it's 2 grocery stores.
Oh my gosh.
It is massive. And I think because it's truly an international market. And one of the things I kind of asked him one day, because I was in one of those warehouses, I'm like, is that Egyptian toilet paper? And he's like, yeah. Because sometimes...
What's the difference between Egyptian toilet paper and regular toilet paper?
Everyone has a preference brand-wise, right? And so when you have the things that you're used to, especially if you have recently moved to the U.S., and so as you're thinking about the things you're looking for, so you'll have like some of the typical, I also say like Americanized butters, right? And then you go and start and you're like, oh, here's where the Danish butters are located, right? And so it's just...
Do they have Egyptian toilet paper there?
They do.
Okay, I'm going to have to go buy some and just see what the difference is.
He also has alligator feet.
Oh, okay. So you go buy the alligator feet, then you take them home and I guess fry them or cook them.
It looks like lobster when you look at the.
Interesting.
That's why I said the scavenger hunt's kind of fun, and he has fresh fish and turtle. I mean,
I'm taking my wife there this weekend.
You should go. It is an adventure.
It is amazing.
It's an absolute adventure, and I think the other thing that complements it, Rancho's the absolute perfect place to have located this, because we do have a very large immigrant population. We've had folks come from all over the world at different times. There was we had a very large Vietnamese population that came in the early 70s, and we had the post when the wall came down. We had a lot of the former Soviet Unions come in, and they look for something that feels and still is a little bit like home. So whether it's finding Egyptian toilet paper or, the right kind of spice or the something that just can connect them back, but then be able to celebrate that's a huge, gift that you can give someone, and you've just come to this place and at least I can find the spice I want, or at least I can find the cut of meat that I want, something like that.
Entrepreneurs making the world better. It's so good. I mean, so I love what you guys are doing and what you're working on. Okay, so I'll give you guys the last word. Maybe I'll start with you, Diann.
Sure.
What did I not ask you, and what else do you want to say, and just closing thoughts about Rancho Cordova?
I am privileged and honored to be able to work there. I've been there for 11 years now, and I worked in a number of other chambers, and nowhere have I felt as welcome, as encouraged, as supported than I have in Rancho Cordova, and that I feel I'm a true peer. I'm a true, the relationship we have with the city and the community and all the different organizations that we work with, we got it going. It's great, and it makes a difference, and I can go home every night and tell my husband or whoever it is, this really cool thing that happened today, and this really neat thing that's going to happen, and this idea that's being percolated over here, and it's great. I mean, what an honor! It really is a privilege.
Thank you. Okay, you got the last word.
All right,
Amanda?
I get the last word. I think I am truly honored and humbled by the businesses and the community that choose to call Rancho Cordova home. I think it's like we have this really unique fabric. I'm sure a lot of communities say this, but I truly do believe the really interesting industry mix and community mix that we have really just enables us to stand out. We've been around for a long time. It's just most people kind of, it was this area of the county. And so as we continue to develop and continue to build these partnerships, I'm just really excited to see where we're going to go. It's going to be really fun. Oh, I do have just some fun facts because we are trying to actively recruit. We do have a jobs and talent program. So what we will do is we'll pay $10,000 per job, over $100,000 if it's net new in the region, in the 6-county region.
Wow.
We pay it over 5 years. So we're looking to actually start competing for some pretty big projects from the site selectors across the U.S.
Wow, that's huge. Now that's to attract obviously major employers. What kind of employers would that be? Would that be a larger tech company?
It could be tech, it could be advanced manufacturing, some things on the life sciences. It's really looking at a broad spectrum, but the key thing is we want to make sure that they're net new jobs. So it can't be somewhere who's relocating from somewhere else in the region. We're playing nice in the sandbox. We really want to make sure that those
What if I'm Solidigm and I'm going to double the size of my business and hire a bunch of 6-figure people? Can I get the $10,000?
We can have that conversation for sure.
Negotiating for you, Solidigm. Well, thank you both for coming on the show. Thanks for your leadership in Rancho Cordova, and I love the collaborative nature of the conversation and really the attitudes that you have about how we all work together and raising the tide. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thanks for having us. Appreciate it.
You bet.
Thanks for watching today's show. My goal for every episode is that you find a takeaway, something tangible you can use in your business today. And if you have a comment about a favorite takeaway, feel free to put it in the box below. And if you have a topic that you'd like me to bring up on the show, don't forget to let me know. And also, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel if you want to learn more about entrepreneurship. Because at Haney Biz, we are always by your side.